Well, hi there, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I am your host, Bill Whittle. It is the 26th of December. Let's grab our friends over on Twitch. And hello, Twitch. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. It's the 26th of December. I am your faithful host, Bill Whittle. This is the Stratosphere Lounge. And we are coming to you live from beautiful downtown Sherman Oaks, California. Hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas. We had a real kind of a quiet one. We did go down on Christmas Eve to a place down in Long Beach called Naples, and there's a little island there, and a circular canal, and the Christmas decorations there are the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It was a winter wonderland in the middle of Southern California, so little boats going around and gondolas and everything, and it was just magical. It was just wonderful. Otherwise, Christmas was pretty quiet. How was everybody else? Is everybody? Did you get your Major Matt Masons and your Easy Bake Ovens and your I don't know, your Stingray bikes and your go-karts with the blue metal flake helmet that was in the Sears catalog? I remember that stuff. I miss it so much. I thought it was cool. Everything, but everything here is great. I have been, Bill didn't get a Christmas haircut. Bill just basically sort of slicked it down a little bit and just kind of, I just gave it, you know what it is? I gave the hair the talking to. I have, we did the show on Monday night. On Tuesday night, I came home and walked for 2.5 miles. Then last night I did 3.5. Yesterday, and looks like I'm going to do probably 3 tonight, or by the end of the day today when I go for my second one. So coming off of big walk, being from here down to the parking lot, and then and then I have to walk all the way up the driveway once I get home in the bitchin' Camaro. That's pretty cool, and I'm pleased to say that I never got winded, never had to stop. I just kept on going for 3.5 hours, and it was it's good. So I'm taking this pre-diabetic stuff real seriously, and been cutting back on the sugar and doing all kinds of cool things. Thank you for this Sad Wings with Raging with Super Chat. Says, buy yourself a stiff drink of Trina for the new year, Bill, and keep doing good. I will. Thank you. Everybody's liking this kind of little smoother look, a little more formal look. I can kind of keep it that way, I reckon. And there goes Malibu Einstein. So it all depends on the mood, Just sometimes get in a shaggy mood, but I just got cleaned up because I was basically I wasn't even working up a sweat. Yesterday was the kind of, we're moving from talking about your health to the weather, because that's the kind of show this is. Nothing but the hottest topics. But yesterday in California was one of those days. There's only one word for it. It's an English word. You don't hear it very often. But it was a blustery day yesterday. Low clouds and chilly without being really cold, but pushing cold, and lots of wind, and my all-time favorite weather conditions is just that kind of blustery, chilly kind of day, because I grew up in hot places where there is no weather. So any kind of weather that's not actually raining on you is fun. So I did this 45-minute, almost an hour walk, and my face was really cold. My hands were cold. I was sweating like a dog underneath my thermal. I just had a pair of long john tops on, gray ones, because I don't want to look like a complete yahoo. I did have an interesting thing just happen to me, and when I say just happened to me, I mean 20 minutes ago, just as I was almost done with it when I started rolling the walk-in music on the Twitch side. My brother Evan is a lot more liberal than I am, and so is my sister Melanie. My brother Steve is 1 year younger than me. Evan is 6 years younger than me, and Melanie's 7 years younger than me. So those two are considerably more liberal. None of them are communists or I wouldn't call any of them particularly woke either. But they're definitely Democrats. My brother Steve was a year younger. We're old enough to know better. So I got an email I got a text actually from my brother Evan while we were walking around this, looking at all these incredibly decorated houses down in Naples, just off of Long Beach. And it said, "Hey, I don't want to talk politics there, brother, or anything." And I thought, okay, here it comes. I just got something I just want to vent, and I was just wondering if you would mind reading an email. And I thought, thanks, man. Thanks for sending that to me on Christmas Eve. So I spent 2 days basically avoiding looking at this thing, because I also spent the last 2 days ammoing up on the entire conservative argument, like the whole thing, the whole thing. I'm gonna lay out the whole reason why we support Donald Trump, and we're gonna talk about the vaccine. We're gonna talk about the convictions, and because he said I just have to vent, and I was expecting the liberal letter. Marisha wants to know if it was an apology letter. It wasn't an apology letter. It was something better than that. It was really profound. So basically, my brother Evan sent me an email and he said, I don't know if you can help me with this, because I just can't figure it out. He says, I've been watching It's a Wonderful Life, and I love the movie, like everybody. And he said, but there's something I can't get away from. He said, and that is that George Bailey is running kind of the people's bank. The only people that are wealthy in all of Bedford Falls are pure evil, that in terms of Mr. Potter. And then Sam, was it Wainwright, is kind of an ass, the guy who comes in at the end and saves the day, who's just out of town. He's portrayed as kind of a dip. So how is this not socialism? I mean, he's not. I want to make this crystal clear. My brother Evan is not promoting socialism. He's not saying socialism is great. He's just trying to understand how this movie that's so beloved by Americans is so fundamentally, egalitarian like that. And again, I need to say that one more time. My brother's not a socialist. He's not saying, see, this proves it. Not doing that at all. He's just saying he watched the movie and he came to realize that George doesn't seem to make any profit. The only reason George keeps the bank open is because is to continue helping people, and it just has a real thing. So immediately Eric says, incorrect. Eric Leaf Bailey says, Sam is a goofy guy, sure, but he's friends with Bailey, and George gets him to create jobs for the town. Okay, so put aside Sam for a minute. So I gave this some thought, and I wrote him back a fairly detailed letter, and I said, well, I don't think it's not that It's a Wonderful Life is not about promoting like socialism as it is about preserving your humanity. And I went into how first vote I ever made was for Walter Mondale, because he said he was going to raise taxes. I voted for Mondale raising taxes because I wasn't paying any taxes. I was dumb as a box of rocks and surrounded by theater people, and that was the person to vote for. So that's what I did. Just went with the crowd and give it any thought. Thought Ronald Reagan was a lunatic who was going to turn us all into radioactive ash. Many years later, I did a 13-part series on the Cold War, and I've spoken at the Reagan Library on 3 occasions, and every time I go out there and kind of stand by his grave and whisper a small apology for being so stupid, and saying and thinking the mean things I said and thought about him at the time. But I brought this up to my brother. I said, one of the most remarkable things that anyone ever said about Ronald Reagan was that Ronald Reagan didn't come here to save us from communists. He came here to save us from the capitalists. And I asked the person who told me that, and I said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, I wish I could remember who it was who said this. They said, unchecked rapaciousness is the only reason that socialism exists. Communism by Karl Marx, as envisioned by Marx and as espoused by Lenin and turned into a political system by Lenin, was about the excesses of early industrial era capitalism. Children working in factories, and my family is coal miners and textile workers for a dozen generations. As far back as we can tell, we were coal miners, and then we became mill workers. So we were on the short end of that stick. None of us that I'm aware of ever had any particular problem with that. You know, you make more money working in the mill than you do mining coal, and you make more money mining coal than not mining coal. So we went from coal miners to mill workers to, I think we were plumbers for a generation or two, and then we come to America. My grandfather became a telephone lineman, high-tech, cutting-edge technology in 1915, and then, or 1911, I honestly don't remember right now. But then, telephone lineman, hotel manager, internet superstar. And so he was a lineman for the county. Yes, he was. So I said to my brother, I said, see, there's a fault line in the human heart, and what Capra is promoting in It's a Wonderful Life is not socialism, it's utopianism. And he's got a community of people that do the right things because they're virtuous, and George Bailey is the pinnacle of virtue. He kind of holds the whole system together because George Bailey holds the purse strings for Bedford Falls, and George Bailey is a uniquely human, caring, kind, compassionate, and honest person. He's very much like what the 1940s view of Abraham Lincoln was. You know, Honest Abe, who walked 20 miles to return a $5 overcharge, or that guy. So I said it's not, George Bailey's not about socialism. He's about utopianism, and I said there's a problem when the free market is the greatest invention in the history of the world because it's harnessed people's desire to get ahead, personal self-improvement, self-interest is harnessed to free trade, which provides goods and services to people on a voluntary basis. If they don't want to buy it, they don't have to. And because it's a mutual win, both parties, if you go and you pay McDonald's, it used to be $4.50 for a Happy Meal, now it's probably $11, but you pay your $11 for your Happy Meal, you drive away, and both parties are happier. You wanted the hamburgers, McDonald's had hamburgers and wanted the money. You had the money, you wanted hamburgers. So that's a volitional free trade agreement. Both parties in the free market go home wealthier because they've got something that they wanted, traded something that they had for something that they wanted. And as long as there's mutuality to it, then the system is unparalleled. It's just nothing but a total 100% moral good. And it creates enormous amounts of wealth and has alleviated so much poverty and so much human suffering that it's just plain astonishing. But when the mutuality goes out of it because of the lack of humanity on the part of one of the players, then you've got a problem. And this is the business about Reagan coming to save us from capitalists. Ronald Reagan was a very Capra-esque guy. Well, they came from the same time, obviously the same time, the same location. They were contemporaries in Hollywood. And they both had this idyllic utopian vision of honest free market America, where it was basically for trade. And when Bedford Falls becomes Potterville, it becomes Potterville because Potter is no longer is no longer providing a service. Potter is trying to increase his number. The number, your net worth can corrupt the human heart, and we see this with Enron. We saw it with the guys that were doing the collaborative, what those things called, collateralized debt obligations, was it, during the financial crisis in 2008, where people were selling garbage and everybody knew that it was garbage, and everybody knew that the garbage was leveraging more garbage, which was leveraging more garbage, and it was a question of get in, get your money, and get out before you run into the ultimate fool. The greater fool theory is that somebody's always going to buy something you're holding no matter what, until you finally get to the ultimate fool, and he can't get out anymore. He's the last guy in line. He gets, basically it. So what I ended up explaining, not lecturing my brother, but just telling him my interpretation of what Capra's trying to do in It's a Wonderful Life is to say, look, in communist societies or fascist societies, tyranny can come at the point of a gun, but tyranny can come in through the back door in America if we don't guard against capitalism without, I was almost going to say without humanity, but that's a little bit too touchy-feely for me. I'm enough of a realist to understand that capitalism is predicated on getting the best deal you can. I think mutual benefit is a much better way to look at it, right? As long as both parties benefit, then you've got paradise. If one party is using its power and money to extract wealth without providing anything in return, now you've got financial tyranny. So, for example, let's say you've got a business and the business is doing, well, right? Let's just say it's a bakery. So we can get back at Whoopi Goldberg and all the rest of these people and the poor people that had to bake a cake they didn't want to bake. Eric Blake is interrupting me here to say, worth noting, Potter's power comes from his political clout, but his own clerk tells Potter that George's housing development is shooting up in value and eventually will put Potter out of business and bankrupt him. Nothing's going to bankrupt Potter. Potter's profit motive is all about the short term. Bailey's is more long. But George Bailey's never going to bankrupt. That is maybe what Potter wanted to hear, and maybe the justification for it. But Potter is not in any danger of being put out of business by George Bailey. I mean, that's the rapaciousness of it. Anyway, back to the bakery analogy, right? So let's say you've got a bakery and you're doing decent business, right? You're turning a profit and you're paying your staff and your family's working and you're making money and you got a nice house and all of that stuff is clicking. And some venture capitalist firm comes along, let's say, and sees the value in this bakery, and basically, let's just say for the sake of it, it keeps it friendly, makes an offer to the owner of the bakery that he can't refuse. Just basically here have several $1 million or $100 million or whatever for your bakery, and then they get in there, and I've seen this done many times, and I've heard it done in Russia endlessly. And then they basically go in there and take the name, start cutting on the ingredients, cutting back on the ingredients, cutting back on the staff, cutting back on the experience. They basically suck the wealth out of it and then just leave this kind of husk behind. Now that is destructive for one party, and really, I mean, you can say the guy got paid for his bakery. Yes. Maybe he didn't get such a sweetheart deal. Maybe he got the only deal he could take. You get the idea, right? So this is an uncomfortable subject for me because this is a fine line I have to walk here, not because I don't want to piss off my viewers, but because I want to stay true to my own principles. And the reason that this is such an interesting discussion to me anyway is because it does get down to what is it that we actually believe in. I mean, I'm proud to call myself a capitalist. I'm a free market capitalist, and capitalism is superior to socialism in every single way. but you're still dealing with human beings, and human beings have flaws. And this, to me, is the essence of what conservatism is understanding that there are flaws in humanity and accepting that and trying to make the best systems you can in terms of economics and government to allow as much freedom as possible without losing sight of the fact that people are flawed creatures. And this is where I part company with the libertarians, who I agree with on so much, on virtually everything, except for this kind of utopian belief that people will always do the right thing because it's in their self-interest to do the right thing. So Dave Big Booty says the only thing I don't like about capitalism is that its name was given by Karl Marx. Well, capitalism is a purgative term, because capitalism, and it was named by Marx for this reason, capitalism implies that in order to play the game, you have to have capital. You have to have big sacks of money. And when Marx wrote Das Kapital and then the Communist Manifesto, he was right. If you wanted to open a factory, you had to have a ton of money in the beginning. You either had to raise it or have it. And so you had people who were really divorced from the people that worked for them and so on, and they would just go in there and they would consider their workforce to be equivalent to any other supply of lumber or coal or iron or whatever the case may be. It took a while for capitalism to get it figured out. The problem is, once they did get it figured out, the people who were anti-capitalist didn't go away. But you don't need big bags of capital to play the game. You can open up a lemonade stand and make money on a lemonade stand. At least you could before the police would start asking for your lemonade selling permits, as they do here in California. But in any event, you can simply provide either a goods or services that people want, and you can start from scratch. You can hand make a spear and trade it for a basket. And so I'm thinking about this example because Evan's right about how the only guy in the whole movie who's really rich is just awful. And maybe that's why Sam is there as a balance, because Sam is not awful. Sam comes to his aid at the end. But Potter is an archetype. And as an archetype, he is very effective as a villain. And George Bailey is human. He's kind, he's compassionate, but I think one of the more hidden messages in It's a Wonderful Life is that George Bailey is too naive. He's not the ideal man yet at the beginning of the movie. You like to think that after Christmas is over and everybody goes home and George gets the loan for the $8,000 and he stays in business, you kind of like to think that he will kindly sit Uncle Billy down and tell him, Uncle Billy, I don't think you need to be handling the money anymore. I think we need to take this a little more seriously than that. And it's almost like saying, if the bank left all of the money outside the door on their property, it would still be stealing if people came up and took it. But you have to ask yourself, at what point are you again, the responsibility is entirely on the part of the thief. I'm not trying to say that there's a scapegoat. I am saying there is a common sense requirement on the part of just about everybody to not be a complete sucker, right? Like I said, if the bank left all the money outside unguarded at nighttime and somebody comes up and steals it, they are thieves. And they are moral bastards. I can't stand criminals of any kind. I just loathe them with every atom in my body. But you do have to start saying, at what point does the bank have an obligation to itself to be at least on some level, minimally, you know, careful. Yeah, Dave Big Booty again, I'm sorry, Murshid, a fool in his money or soon parted. Yes, exactly. So, Billy folded the envelope into the paper, says P7 2017. Yes, but Billy shouldn't have folded the money into the envelope into the paper, because Billy didn't take it seriously, because Billy's an alcoholic. And oh wow, I didn't. Marisha Darkscott over in YouTube has a quote from Elon Musk. Running a startup is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. After a while, you stop staring, but the glass chewing never ends. You learn to enjoy the taste of blood. That's, again, fairly cool thing for him to say. Billy loses the money because he was gloating to Potter. Yeah, pride goes before the fall, says Eric. Would I consider the Google guys a modern day Potter? Yes. And I'll tell you why I consider Google to be anti-capitalism, anti-free market. Because they used to have as their motto, don't be evil, and they took that motto down. And when you make a decision to do that, that's what happens. I've seen people become, and I was guilty of this. Fortunately for me, I got it out of the way mostly in my 20s, and at a relatively low dollar value. But I've seen people corrupted by wealth and fame and power, and I've watched people become much less human than they used to be. They just start to believe this. The power of power cannot be underestimated. It is almost impossible to resist the headiness of it, the euphoria of big success, So Google got to the point where it became a number, and a number of people have gotten to the point where Enron was about increasing the number, and all of those guys who were selling those collateralized debt obligations were about increasing their number, and they didn't care whether or not people got hurt by it. And so this is the utopianism of Capra, but ultimately what he's warning us against, I think, is tyranny. Yes, and I didn't mention this to my brother Evan, but I had it as an afterthought, and P7 2017 brings it up, because I was going to use the example of Boeing. P7 here says in the YouTube comment section, CEO of Ford is on your side. He said early on engineers run things, but later the finance guys run things, and it all goes to hell. Let's take the example of Boeing, which was known to be a company that was a company for engineers. McDonnell Douglas was known to be a company of money guys. Boeing buys McDonnell Douglas, but basically they bought the management, and the management came into Boeing and stopped worrying about things like safety and innovation, and started taking all the money they could out of it. In other words, well, we won't build the jets all in one place. It'd be much cheaper to have different parts assembled in different areas and then ship all these places together, and we just basically stitch them together. Among many, many other things that McDonnell Douglas management that became Boeing management did to Boeing. So now Boeing has completely lost its brand, because Boeing doesn't make airplanes. Boeing manufactures safety. That's their brand. They manufacture safety. That's what Boeing is selling, is safe travel. And they've completely lost it because they took this short-term view, and there you go. So why is it? So what's the difference between the engineers and the financial guys? Because that's a great line. When it's run by engineers, the company prospers and succeeds. When the financial guys come in, they basically scoop it out and ruin it. What's the difference? And I'm speaking in enormous generalities here. So obviously, there are many fine financial guys, and there are many bastard engineers. In fact, virtually all engineers are bastards, but you get the idea. What's the difference between the two? The engineers want to make a good product. The engineer's personal pride is on the thing working. And in the case of an airplane, that means working safely. Engineers are determined to produce a quality product. Financial guys don't give a damn about the quality of the product. They are concerned with maximizing the number. And it's this, see, this is a great example, and I really appreciate this. P7, thank you for bringing that up, because this actually clarified things for me. The difference between these two different kinds of people is what their motivations are, not just their motivations, what's their job. It's the job of an engineer to produce a quality airplane, which is an airplane that doesn't crash. The job of the financial guys is to maximize profit for the shareholders. And that's their job. So the real problem is not the financial guys. The financial guys are just doing their jobs. They're cutting costs, and they're trying to maximize efficiency. And to some degree, this is a good thing to have. You don't want to get too gold-plated and too fat. You need somebody who's counting the beans. So the real problem is with the board. The real problem is with the ultimate level management. When the people who make the decisions on the top level decide to move from the engineers to the financial guys as the ethos of the company, then you're in trouble. And we see this everywhere. We see it with video game development. You know, how many times have we seen really terrific video games come out that were put out by devs, just really good developers and writers, and maybe it's a relatively small studio or whatever, but they put out a terrific game, and the game does banging business. And then something happens, and a different class of people take over. GTA 5, Grand Theft Auto 5, is, I think, the most successful video game of all time. And I have heard that GTA 6 is very woke and very politically correct. And the entire purpose of Grand Theft Auto is to be as unpolitically correct as possible. Grand Theft Auto is about stealing cars, beating up hookers with tire irons, smashing through police barricades, and basically just running over people and gunning them down. It's the ultimate id satisfaction. When you're playing Grand Theft Auto, you get a chance to live out your darkest fantasies. It's like playing the Klingons in Star Trek before the Klingons became all soft and mushy and so on. But they take over this product, and now they're trying to maximize the amount of money they can get out of it, but they've changed the product. If GTA 6 was the same as GTA 5, but with damn near, as I've seen, photorealistic graphics, they'd make a fortune. But no, they can't do that, because that would be an engineering decision. Let's just do what we're doing. It's working great. We're making a ton of money. We got the most successful game in the history of the world. Now let's put hundreds of millions of dollars into making this thing look even better, and we'll put out GTA 6, and you'll get the exact same charge, and you get it, but you'll do it with better graphics, and you get a whole new generation of players. But that's not what they're doing. Now they have to put message in there, and then the corporate advisors come in, and then they start cutting costs, and then they start doing what they did with Cyberpunk 77, which is releasing early before the game is ready. Either they make an announcement because of market forces, and the game's just not ready by then, or they do a pre-release to raise money, which is hot garbage in terms of playability. And it just turns to junk. And they're not, I almost said they're not clever enough, but it's worse than that. They are not disciplined enough to stay on message and do what they're good at. Philip Lehman here writes, Bill, I've worked in aerospace as an engineer for 20 plus years. I've personally watched the accounting finance takeover that you're describing. We have a term for it. I can't wait to hear the term. Meanwhile, Vorpal Bunny's Revenge says it becomes a cargo cult. Yes. It becomes, make something that looks like an airplane and the airplanes will arrive. The new directors know only the surface of what creates success, not the root causes. They imitate the form without the substance. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. They don't play GTA. The people who make the decisions to do GTA 6 and make it girl bosses and and politically correct and all the rest of it, they're not players. The original team were players. The original development team had to have been players, because otherwise there's no back to Philip Lehman. He says we have a term for it. He says we say the company is nut pimped. That's an acronym, NTPMD, which I'm about to find out what NTPMD is. So this is the lesson of It's a Wonderful Life. It's don't non-technical people making technical decisions. Yep. So, and Scott Adams is the living legend when it comes to this dynamic, right? I mean, Scott Adams and Dilbert Scott Adams is one of the very, very few engineers who has tremendous communication skills. Labco92 says, Bill, did you miss my super chat? And I obviously did. Let me scroll back up. I did. Lapco92 for a super chat says, sadly, companies tend to get big by doing a good job producing a product or service, but when they get big enough, they work at staying on top rather than continuing the behavior that got them there. Yes, exactly. Which is why, if I get a chance, Scott Adams wasn't an engineer. He originally worked in a bank. Well, Scott Adams captured the engineer mindset better than anybody I've ever known. I've known several engineers, and he really has got him. Marisha says, in the Dilbert TV show, Dilbert destroys a utopian company by accidentally introducing a marketing department into it. Yep. So all this just to say, you got to be careful about the back door, when you become successful, you attract people that are attracted to successful companies, and those people can sing a siren song about how to make even more money by even more this and more of that, or you've been tremendously successful this way. What you need to do now is change course and do this, and then you end up losing what got you where you were in the first place. And we've all seen that, happening. And it's, well, don't forget the lawyers. There's the lawyers. But the lawyers kind of come after the fact. I'm not a gigantic, huge Dilbert fan. I'm not like a guy who read it all the time. Most of my Dilbert experience, because I don't read newspapers, was from, anthology books in people's bathrooms. But I read enough Dilbert to certainly follow the thread. And I think it was Dogbert who was talking about marketing, and they're going to come up with a new logo, and he puts his coffee down on one of the memos, puts his cup of coffee down on one of the memos, and they're talking about they're going to spend this money on marketing, and Dogbert holds up this coffee stain, and he says, we're going to go with this. And they said, what do you mean we're going to go with this? And he says, it's the brown circle of quality. And I thought, geez. So, yeah. The brown circle of quality. And The Far Side was crazy brilliant too. And I'll tell you another great, shifting gears here now because I'm about drain this thing dry. Another crazy great strip was Calvin and Hobbes. I loved that strip. Um, I really, really loved it. Uh, I loved Calvin. I thought Calvin was just such a boy, and I loved how he never ran away from that. With Calvin and was it Susie, I think, where she's constantly telling him to do the sensible thing, the right thing, and Calvin is just plain wrong. He just does nutty stuff, but by God, yeah, Spaceman Spiff and his imagination and the whole dynamic with Hobbes, when Hobbes is drawn as a real tiger versus when to draw Hobbes as just a stuffed animal, and you see just the stuffed animal, and all of a sudden you realize he looks so sad, just as a stuffed toy, but then you realize it's no, it's not a stuffed toy. Calvin, I think that's the best cartoon ever drawn is Calvin and Hobbes because it's very deep. It's as deep as Peanuts could be, and as deep as I never liked Doonesbury. I never ever liked Doonesbury. I thought Doonesbury was always very preachy. What was the cartoon that had Opus in it? Um, Opus the Penguin. Bloom County, another great strip, and Bill the Cat. And my best friend through most of my life has been a guy named Fritz. And we walked into a party once, and somebody said, "Oh, look, it's Fritz the Cat and Bill the Cat." And I thought, I don't think I'm much flattered by that comparison. Yeah, Bloom County was a great strip too. But Calvin and Hobbes with the blaster. Anytime we did the Spaceman Spiff stuff, I thought it was great. So anyway, yeah, I think that's about it. Uh, the the time has come to get. People are talking about all the cartoons they like. Can we all agree that the worst comic strip ever to receive widespread distribution, without question, and I mean I'd like a unanimous vote on this, but can we all agree that Nancy was the worst comic strip of all time ever? Ever? Even, yep. People are saying Nancy before I said Nancy. Yep, Nancy was the worst comic strip of all time. Everybody is agreeing. Everybody jumped in with Nancy before I even said Nancy. Doonesbury had occasionally had moments, and Doonesbury was relatively well drawn. But Nancy, Kathy's 1,000 times better than Nancy. Nancy was. I still have nightmares about Nancy's hair. He must have had a stamp or something to draw that. So I'm not a Nancy boy? No, I'm not a Nancy boy. And even if I was a Nancy boy, Nancy would still be the worst comic strip of all time. Ever. It's horrible. It's horrid. It's a horrid script. Ugh. Nancy. Makes Andy Capp look like, Shakespeare. And other comics to date you. Blondie. I was never a huge Blondie fan, but Blondie at least was well drawn, and Blondie was a smoking hot babe. But Nancy, not only was Nancy just horrifically drawn, creepy drawn, but there was never so much as a smile in it. It was just like, Sluggo in the midair jump, with little sparks coming out of his head or whatever. It's like, oh dear Lord. What absolute utter garbage that was. We all had to endure that together. We all had the shared experience of, some generations have Stalingrad, we had Nancy. Wish I was kidding about that, but I'm not. Okay, let's see here. There we go. Dagwood did not deserve her. No, but Nancy, but Blondie gave regular guys hope, because that was the thing about Dagwood. Dagwood was clearly, Blondie was clearly out of Dagwood's lead, but she loved him, and you could watch Blondie and think, even I someday may be able to land something like that, someone like that. Even I, lowly though I may be. Kaiwan F8 says Bill needed years of therapy to recover from Nancy. I still see it in my nightmares. And Sluggo. Ugh. I'll tell you, just before we get into the first question, I'll tell you something else too. I had very serious, almost uncontrollable homicidal desire to kill Lucy Van Pelt. I eventually got to know a couple people who were kind of like Lucy Van Pelt, those psychopath women. And no, I didn't read it. Marisha did not read The Religion War. But staying inside to avoid the drones sounds like it's a reasonable aspect of the future. Move this over here. Yeah, you're all good. Yes. Lady Hawk says I did want to bitch slap her. I'm still concerned about where is Janie Waterman. I'm still. I hope I didn't say something to make her go away, but I haven't seen her in weeks, and she was so sweet and friendly, and I'm concerned about her. If anybody knows what happened to her or knows how to reach her, just let me know, because she just was such a big part of the comment section here for a while and relatively recently, and then just I've been worried about her. So if anybody has any skinny on that, I sure hope it wasn't anything I said or did. Can't imagine that would be possible, but you never know. Or G.K. Masterson. She's got her trucker job, so presumably she listens after the fact. Well, I occasionally hear from G.K. and but not Janie. I hope she's okay. Thank you, Eric, for moderating this comment section. P7 says, be nicer to Peanuts. I'm not. I love Peanuts. I thought Peanuts was a great strip. I just despised Lucy. I think Snoopy and the Red Baron is probably the precursor to. I think Spaceman Spiff its existence to Snoopy versus the Red Baron. I remember the song Snoopy versus the Red Baron by the Royal Guardsmen. I remember that too. And yeah, Lucy was the Karen Democrat of her time. That's exactly right. I love Snoopy. I love the Christmas specials. And what was it about? I was going to say one more thing about Peanuts that I really thought was great. It's probably the greatest strip of, in terms of cultural impact. They named, come on, I know the answer to this. This would have been Apollo 9. No, 10. Wasn't it 10? Named the Lem, Snoopy, and the command module was Charlie Brown? I can't remember. Okay. Oh, I remember what I was going to say about Peanuts. Lucy and Linus, or Linus and Lucy, that piece of jazz is just one of my favorite tunes of all time. It's a beautiful dun 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 dun. Oh, Snoopy and Gumdrop on Apollo 9. Nope, retracted message. Okay, so let's see. We got, my God, 1, 2, 3, 4 Bob Knipes in a row. We got a John Higgins, capital G Geek, with a 9-part question. Eric Blake, Marusha Dark. Okay. 10, I think. Yeah, I thought it was 10. Yeah, I was right about it. Of course I was right about it. It was Apollo 10. Because I remember that Spider and Gumdrop, for Apollo 9, they've rediscovered the ascent stage of Apollo 10, as I pointed out in Apollo 11, what we saw. Made me very happy. Vince Giraldi. Yep. It's a beautiful piece of music. Mark Robinson says I play it on the piano all the time. I can't get enough of it. Yeah, it's just really, really, really beautiful. Okay, here we go. Got a bunch of Bob knives, but they're short. The first one is maybe the shortest question and action-packed one-sentence question we maybe ever had here on the Stratosphere Lounge. And Bob Knife wants to know, we're never going to make it to the Andromeda Galaxy, are we? I'm not sure we're going to make it to Mars. I got a much better feeling about that than I did before. There is no reason why we cannot explore and colonize the solar system. The solar system is within our reach. Most people don't realize just how much more difficult interstellar travel is rather than interplanetary travel. It is 5 orders of magnitude more difficult. It's just astonishingly more difficult. But I look at pictures of Los Angeles from 1924, and I see what we've done in 100 years, and we have advanced in technology, and technology means engineering, and so we are accelerating our abilities. We'll never explore the solar system without reliable nuclear rockets, and they're very reliable. And NASA needs to get out of the flying people business and get into the advanced research and development business. NASA's budget, NASA could keep its entire budget, and it's got a big budget because it's doing things like SLS and all the rest of these boondoggles, which are just scrap them. I get the feeling that's going to be one of the first things to go, and everybody's going to scream conflict of interest. But honestly, this Artemis program is a joke, and get rid of the Space Launch System, get rid of the Orion capsule, it was a garbage capsule, get rid of, needless to say, Starliner, ditch all of it, and give NASA a hunk of money and have them start working on gas core nuclear rocket engines. And I could go into this whole long thing about the Project Nerva, but I don't really want to do that right now. But we have had, we built a number of nuclear rockets that work beautifully, and they have tremendous specific impulse, which essentially is not exactly the same, but close enough to say fuel economy. And they are tremendous. Yes, I noticed that too. B570 Rivera says, I'm sorry, 5708 Rivera says the FAA is starting to play nice. They are. They're moving those launch. Remember when there was an election going on, and they held that launch for the launch license for SpaceX for 4 months. Then Elon Musk's best buddy won the election. Now all of a sudden they're just turning those things out like that. Yeah. So the solar, I have no doubt that unless something catastrophic happens, and I mean really catastrophic happens, and I don't see anything really catastrophic happening. There's good news, bad news about the only existential threat to this society, because I personally, and I'm not going to get into this again because it's taken many, many discussions, and it's a whole can of worms. Suffice it to say, I do not believe that a civilization-ending nuclear war is possible because there's no win in it. I'm not saying somebody can't sneak a nuke someplace, but this nuclear annihilation, it just, having done the Cold War series and the number of times when it should have happened and didn't, is telling me it just doesn't happen. So there are no existential threats to this civilization except for a large asteroid impact, aside from internal collapse, obviously. But there's good news and bad news about asteroid impacts. The bad news is there's millions of asteroids out there that we haven't discovered yet. The good news is we know where the big ones are. So every day that goes by, we discover more and more and more, and there are still asteroids out there that are big enough to, cause a 20 megaton, air burst, but nothing big enough to be civilization ending. It is theoretically possible that a comet could come in from the Oort cloud. That would be unpredictable, but basically the chance of that happening in the amount of time we've got between now and having complete mastery of space, which is probably less than 100 years, it might be much less than 100 years, then we don't have to worry about that. So I thought seriously about keeping the colonies inside the solar system, but as a storytelling device, it's just not rich enough. Because you can't go outside. Everything has to take place inside a habitat, and the thank you very much, Kathy. Everybody's making comments about the hair. It's the same old hair. I could just rough it up and make it look the way it did just a few moments ago. There she is. Janie, we were just talking about you. We've been talking about you. We're wondering how you were. We were asking about you last show, and everybody's been wondering where you've been. And hooray! We were really concerned about you. So I'm very, very, very happy to see you. We were just 10 minutes ago. You can go back and watch it. We were just saying, I hope Janie is okay. I haven't seen her in a while, and oh, you've been in a show. Hooray! Congratulations. Congratulations, that's great news. I'm glad to hear it was something like that, and great Christmas. That's nothing but great news, because we missed you. We did. We were really getting a little worried about you, so we're very, very, very happy to see you back. Okay, so we'll never get to the Andromeda Galaxy. There's no reason to go to the Andromeda Galaxy. Going to the Andromeda Galaxy is now, unless you get the cheat code, right? Unless you get the cheat code, if there is possibility of cracking this speed of light thing, then you could go to the Andromeda Galaxy as easily as you could go to the 7-Eleven. But generally speaking, I could live with the solar system. I'd be very happy if we did the local, out to 30 parsecs. And there's just plenty of galaxy here to explore. One possibility is that there is no life in the universe. I think, hard to say. I think clearly the number of intelligent civilizations is way lower than we originally hoped. Way lower. But we could be the first. But I suspect life is everywhere. We might find out when we get to Mars. We might find, let's put it this way. If we actually put archaeologists on the ground in Mars, where we could take laboratories there and do the research the real way, instead of, picking up samples that may or may not get picked up at some point in the future by a program, an expedition hasn't even been designed yet. Let's get Elon to Mars, and let's crack out some magnifying glasses and see if we can find. We may find more than just fossilized evidence of microbial life. We may find fossilized evidence of multicellular life, and we may conceivably find life. But it is an interesting way to tell a story if we are the only place in the universe where there is life. That would be an interesting way of doing it. And I'd never seen, I couldn't even imagine it until Prometheus came out. And Prometheus is a pretty seriously flawed movie. But that very first scene, when you're on a planet with running water and everything, but there's no life there, is just cool. It's really, really cool. So, in any event, no, well, let me put it to you this way, Bob. I don't expect to see us go to the Andromeda Galaxy within my lifetime. And if it turns out that I do, then I will have gotten a lot more than I bargained for. Either that, or we're about to make some breakthrough that is pretty friggin' big. Ray Berry says, "Yippee! The universe is ours." That's the way I look at it on one level too. It's like, I mean, Arthur C. Clarke, right, who said either we are alone or we're not, and either possibility is equally terrifying. But if it turns out that there is no life in the universe anywhere, then that's too bad for the liberals and the progressives, because there won't be anybody to oppress. We'll just go out and be fruitful and multiply and put life everywhere, because life is awesome. Life is phenomenal. So we will see. But I suspect we'll find microbial evidence of at least microbial life on Mars. I expect that will probably be the case, and that I am likely to live to see, so long as I keep walking and stop eating a diet that consists exclusively of sugar, saturated fats, and salt. Okay, so moving on. Bob Knife again. Really looking forward to your interviews with your movie contacts. I forget what you're calling it. Story mechanics. You mentioned recently that it's coming along. Any more definitive timeline? No, the election sucked all of the air out of the society, really, honestly, from the summer. And so the first thing we do on January 1st is we send out the invitations and we get this baby going. So thank you for your patience on that. And the election blew into the holidays, but on January 2nd, it's going to be a new year, and I've always felt better about odd number of years. Always just like them. I don't know. I just like them. So, yeah, my batteries are low and it's getting dark. Is the last message from, was that Spirit or Opportunity? Just kind of poignant. Ray Berry says, "I'm calling Proxima Centauri for the red, white, and blue." Amen, brother. That's the kind of thinking I like to hear around here on the Stratosphere Lounge. It's what the Stratosphere Lounge is all about. I've got a T-shirt that's got a picture of it. It's a pretty simple cartoon. It's an astronaut on the moon, surface of the moon, holding an American flag, and below that it says "Finders Keepers." So there's that. Up next, after Bob Knife, is Bob Knife. I'm really looking. Oh, just got that one. Any more definitive timeline? No, just expect that we will put out the invitations in January, and with any luck, we'll be able to do the first interviews in January with Mike Rowe and Adam Baldwin being the most likely two guys to lead off. Mike Rowe is who I'm going to be talking to first. So we'll see. Up next, Bob Knife. I know that over the past few years you've mentioned Natasha's take on the Cold War and Empire of Terror, but could you discuss again how she deals with the contrast between Russia's incredible history and her understandable love of her country with such incredible political evil? It causes her tremendous torment, and it causes her torment on a daily basis. I was dealing with that this morning. She feels it every day. Her daughter, my stepdaughter, and her mother, my mother-in-law, live in Sochi, and we cannot visit them, and they cannot visit us. And it is very, very hard on her. She's the only child, and her daughter is an only child. I did not see it, Marusha, but I heard about it. Unfortunately, Mom doesn't like to travel, so she's stuck in Sochi. She just doesn't travel. She just doesn't. So there's that. Natasha went back to visit in 21, I want to say. Right after the COVID restrictions were lifted and just before the Ukraine war, so it would have been late 21 that she went. So she got to see her mom again for the first time in 7 years or so. Russia says she can't go there. I mean, she could go there. She's got a Russian passport, but I wouldn't. I not after her husband did Empire of Terror. I don't think that, I don't like the odds of that. There was a a Russian ballerina who went back to Russia. She didn't defect. She didn't do anything. She just lived in the United States, has dual citizenship, has a U.S. citizenship and Russian citizenship, went back to Russia, was arrested and put in prison because she made a $50 donation to a Ukrainian cause. And the United States of America should have sent some aircraft carriers that way and said, give us our citizen back. And we didn't. And so, is she okay? The family's okay. Now, the good news is that my stepdaughter, Diana, who's in her mid-30s now, Natasha had her when she was 18. We have met, I've met Diana in Mexico. God, for the love of me, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 times. It might have been 3 times in Mexico. They have charter flights from Moscow to Cancun, direct from Moscow to Cancun charter flight, and so I pay to put her on that charter flight, and then Natasha and I fly down to Cancun. I usually go down for 2 nights, 3 nights, and then I come back because I can't be gone really that long. I got the cats and work and stuff, and then Natasha stays for another week. So Diana gets to do 10 days in Mexico. Natasha does 10 days in Mexico, and I do 3. That's probably how it's going to go. There was the Russian people don't celebrate Christmas. The communists took Christmas away from them. Their Christmas in the Eastern Orthodox religion, I want to say it's January 9th, but it's definitely in January. But everything got transferred to New Year's. So we have a New Year's tree at our house. We don't have a Christmas tree. I have a New Year's tree. And New Year's is the big holiday. For New Year's this year, which is our wedding anniversary, by the way, New Year's Eve, we got married on the 31st of December. It'll be 8 years in just a few days. We're going up to visit Russian friends in Lake Arrowhead for New Year's. But in January, February, we've got to going to get Diana back to Mexico. I'll go down for a couple days. Natasha got to spend, 2 months. That was hard on me. In Bali. Bali is a good place for Russians, so Diana went to Bali for almost a year. And Natasha got to spend a couple months with her, and that was back about a year ago, I guess. That seemed like 1,000 years she was gone. But, it's like they're very, very, very close. Natasha raised her as a single mom, so they're very, very close. And Bali was out of the question for me. I mean, it's just, just a 2 days travel each way, and I just can't be gone that long. Diana has tried to get a tourist visa to the United States twice and been turned down twice, which is devastating. Devastating. Hey, Don.com. Looked into this podcast. Greetings. Welcome to the happy family. We're always happy to see new people here, and especially people who come in and introduce themselves. And some people lurk in the darkness like I do when I go to parties. But we got 207 people watching on YouTube, and happy to see you, and happy to see everybody else who's new here. So welcome, and I think you're going to find just a lot of friends here. There's some really, really smart people here, despite the host. So I guess they like to get together and laugh at me behind my back, something like that. That's usually how it goes. That's the impression you get from the comment section anyway. So anyway, Bob, to your third question, it's hard on her, and putting aside the personal issues, she feels an enormous amount of guilt and pain whenever she thinks about the situation in Ukraine. It just tears her up. She thinks about the people that are killed and all of this, and it's not like these two armies crashed into each other. I mean, the invasion was the invasion, and it's it's really hard on her, which makes it hard on me. So, there you go. But in any event, there you go. You, but the fourth question from Bob is a little bit longer, and I'm feeling a little hoarse. So I'm gonna. It's about George Kennan on the Cold War podcast, but I'm going to skip that one, Bob. If you don't mind, I'll just leave you with the first three, because I've got a couple of big ones still to do. 1, 2, 3, 4 novels to cover. So I'm going to move on. And apologies if please bring it back next week if it turns out that I didn't get to you, because I didn't get to you on the last one. And thank you for the anniversary wishes. All right, from John Higgins, a name we don't see too often. Hi, John. Evening, Bill. For the record, I removed all the pins from the voodoo doll last week. So, okay. So any further ailments are your own problem. This would probably be Lapco 92. I've got to guess. Several months back, I mentioned a line from a short poem I stumbled across about Americans not being common men, and you kind of dismissed it, and it's stuck with me. I finally found it again. It's called My Creed, or An American's Creed, by Dean Alphonse, I guess, in 1952. His political career is a bit odd, but I think it sums up conservative attitude quite well. Enjoy. And this is the quote. I do not choose to be a common man. It's my right to be uncommon. I'm loving it so far. I seek to develop whatever talents God gave me, not security. I do not wish to be a kept citizen, humbled and dulled by having the state look after me. My God, this sounds so much like Heinlein. I want to take the calculated risk, to dream and to build, to fail and to succeed. I refuse to barter incentive for a dole. I refuse the challenges of life to the guaranteed existence, the thrill of fulfillment to the state calm of utopia. I will not trade freedom for beneficence, nor my dignity for a handout. I will never cower before any earthly master, nor bend to any threat. It is my heritage to stand erect, proud, and unafraid, to think and act myself, enjoy the benefit of my creations, and to face the world boldly and say, "This, with God's help, I have done." All this is what it means to be an American. Well, amen to that, brother. Proxima Centauri belong, for the USA. I couldn't agree with it more. That's just, boom. So, yeah, it's that's it, man. That's what the whole country's about. That's what America's designed for. America's designed for people that want to take a risk. I was thinking about this with thinking about Scandinavian countries, and I went to Norway, and everything in Norway was just so beautifully clean, and everything operates efficiently, and the airport is spotless, and the public transportation is amazing and spotless and clean and on time, and everybody's fit, everybody's healthy, they're riding bikes, they're skiing. I love Norway, and I love the Norwegians. I've got not a bad thing to say about them, and I'm not about to attach a but to the end of that, because it is a form of paradise, honestly. I did notice that there was that all of this order and competence created a kind of calmness that you would think most people would want, and most people do. There's something that is, I do believe that creation and creativity is a result of conflicting forces. Certainly, it's legendary in the movie business that the really great movie set, the really great films had difficult shoots because everybody cared and everybody had an opinion, and nobody was phoning it in, and so that's a kind of a microcosm of that. But this whole American culture it's very much like a star. You got all of these forces that are explosive forces, all of this differences of opinion and all this political intensity and all of these differing peoples and backgrounds, and it all wants to fly apart and explode. But there's this gravitational attraction that holds it together, and the left is doing its very best to eliminate that attractive force. They're trying to snip those atomic bonds and just have the thing explode. But I don't think they're smart enough to do that. I think that there's too much. There's just too much wonderfulness about it. But when you hear Europeans say Americans are so stupid, well, Americans are stupid. Americans do a lot of stupid things. You don't see adults doing as many stupid things as Americans do. We do a lot of stupid stuff. That's because you get to do stupid stuff when you're free people. And when I say free, I don't mean just politically free. I mean mentally free. We did either an early right angle or even an older trifecta on this. Somebody built a jet-powered outhouse. And I said, this is the most American thing I've ever seen. I think this guy there should be a statue. Yeah, Marusha Dark says you don't see Norwegians making jackass. No, you don't. So let's talk about the jet-powered outhouse. You could do a lot of good with the money that you spend on a jet-powered outhouse. You could feed a lot of people. You could put out a lot of soup in a soup kitchen. You could probably do a fair amount of social good with it. But the person that built the jet-powered outhouse made his own money. He didn't extort it from people. He didn't get it from taxation. Whatever he did to get wealthy, he provided more in exchange so that people wanted to make deals with him. So he basically became rich, and he decided it would be fun to put a jet engine in an outhouse and drive it down a runway. And that's what he did. And he didn't harm anybody. He didn't take state money. He didn't take, he's paid his taxes. He built a jet-powered outhouse because it was fun. Now, I maintain that in order to build a jet-powered outhouse, you not only have to be cracked, you also have to be much smarter than your average Norwegian. I'm not saying that they're not intelligent. They're extremely intelligent. They're extremely well educated. But the problems necessary to put a jet engine into an outhouse and have it function is an engineering challenge. And I don't see Norwegians having that level of intuitive innovation. It's an extreme example, because if you can build a jet-powered outhouse, then you can build a supersonic airplane that doesn't make a sonic boom, or you can build, rebreathers in a little company that you set up because you think it'd be cool to have rebreathers under it. It just goes on and on and on. And it's not the same guy. At least I might have come in on this, but there is a guy, Lapco92 and P7 are talking about this over in YouTube chat. There is a guy with this long flowing beard, and it's not Scott Ott, and he has made a pulse jet, the same kind of pulse jet that was on the V1 buzz bomb. Just lets air in and closes, and lets air and closes. And he's built a pulse jet, and he's put it on a go-kart. And this guy, who looks like he's 100 years old, is skimming across the Bonneville Salt Flats or wherever the hell else he is. It looks like 100 miles an hour. His elbow is 2 inches away from this thing, which is glowing red hot. And he has this maniacal grin on his face. And I'm sure we did a show about him too. In fact, I know we did a show about him. He's got a bunch of them, yeah. And he just builds these things, and he just goes out there and rides these jet-powered go-karts and jet-powered motorcycles. And I don't think that your average Norwegian has the skill set to build a jet-powered go-kart. They'll probably say, well, we have no need. If we had a need to do it, then we would determine the skills and we would find a way to do it. But that's kind of putting the cart in front of the horse. This guy has excess capacity for a crazy old man. He's a crazy old man who obviously has either an engineering degree or some serious mechanical aptitude. Plus, he's not so old that he doesn't want to have fun. And And that's the sense that I got from Norway, was that having fun was kind of in bad taste. That, you know, that it was just childish. And we're a childish nation, and we should be proud of being a childish nation, because we do childish things which are bad things, but we also do childlike things which are phenomenal. Like, we look at the moon, we think, you know what, I bet you we could go. I bet you we could do it. We don't have anything like the technology. I bet you we could. I bet we could do it. I bet we could do it. I got a lot of respect for that flat earth guy who built his own rocket and killed him, but he got killed doing what he loved, you know? He got killed in a homemade steam-powered rocket. He didn't get hit by a bus, and he didn't have some lingering terminal disease. He was convinced the earth was flat, so he decided to build a rocket to prove it to himself, and he launched himself up on this steam-powered rocket, and the parachute failed, and he was killed. I admire him. Really admire him. Dave Big Boutte says Americans are stupid, but in a brilliant way. I think that's pretty much right. So what America is America is a really wide bell curve. We've got the dumbest people, and we've got the smartest people. Everything else is just narrower than us. And when I say we got the smartest people, we got the smartest people. Nobody's doing what SpaceX is doing, and SpaceX is a bunch of American kids. They're millennials, and some of them are Gen Zers, and obviously some Gen Xers. They probably have a couple of boomers in the back somewhere that they're probably doing all the real engineering, and they still got their pocket protectors and their skinny ties, and they probably got them closed off in a secret room where the real mission control is. That's what I maintain, and I'm sticking to it. But in any event, no one's doing that, because no one's having fun. Elon Musk is a billionaire who's not a Mr. Potter. He's not a numbers guy. He's got his humanity about him. He has fun. You know, the recovery ship is called "Of Course I Still Love You." The payload for the first Falcon Heavy launch was a red sports car with an astronaut in it playing David Bowie, and with a "Don't Panic" from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He's having a good time, which is why he's succeeding, and that's why people want to work for him. You know, they say that, especially for engineers, and people like that, people who like to build things, salary is third, fourth, fifth, sixth on the list of things that they want. What they really want is they want to build fun stuff, and they want to actually get out there and do it. And I don't see this anywhere else in the world. Every now and then you'll see like a small rocket company in Scotland or something, and I think, good for you guys, but they're all alone in the wilderness out there. Here, this is what I want to do with this pitch for Make the Future Great Again, is I want to go out and find out who the next SpaceX is. I want to find out who's doing this, who hasn't been discovered yet, who's making, you know, a lunar lander in their garage, that kind of thing. Dave Big Boutte says, look at the Raptor Mark III engine. SpaceX can build the hardware faster than the FAA can process the paperwork. That's all you need to know. They build the hardware faster. They build rockets faster than somebody can stamp the paper to say, here's your permission to build this rocket. So, you know, this is where creativity comes from. Deathbone, it's a name we don't see too often, with a super chat. Thank you, Deathbone. As Bismarck said, God seems mainly to bless four peoples: idiots, drunkards, children, and Americans. Yep. Exactly. Because we're idiots, drunkards, children, and geniuses. That's where genius always lives on the fringe. That's where genius is. It's on the fringe of madness. And that is why all of the big aerospace company were started by madmen. The Boeing was a guy, and the Lockheed brothers were guys, and Hughes was a guy, and Northrop was a guy, and Douglas was a guy, and all of them. And then let's not forget, Jonathan North American. North American was a guy. North American Aviation, named after Jonathan North American. That's his last name, North American, one word. but you get the idea. So, anyway, thank you very much for that, John. That was a great question. Appreciate it. Capital G Geek. Greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. Greetings from the swamps of Southern California. The political swamps. The cultural swamps. Okay, so this is like it's like 4 questions here. Hang on a second. You asked to be reminded about simulation theory and if people are NPCs. I must say that probably half the people I run into present the appearance of lacking agency or just following the path of least resistance. Yes, and it's not entirely a question of intellect either. It's a question of vitality. Many people seem to live the lives of NPCs. Anyway, he's got a bunch of different topics here. And I don't really see how they're connected. So I guess they're all separate questions. So we got Ukraine, AI, H-1B, and health diabetes information for you. All right, let's see what they got here. All right, so I'll just take them. So Ukraine. The Russians also shot down an airliner with one of their air defense missiles. It's a war and that happens, but they also refused to allow an emergency landing, instead redirecting it to Kazakhstan where it crashed. I remember this from the Cold War, yes. Adding insult to injury, they GPS jammed it the entire way. Oh, is that the Kazakhstan crash? Or is that because they did something many years ago where a plane had to land on the ice someplace? But also Ukraine is still providing Europe with access to Russian gas via a Ukrainian pipeline. Is this all war or just theater of the absurd? Well, it's a pretty bloody, gory quagmire morass of theater, if it is. To me, it just seems like just a meat grinder that's accomplishing nothing. The lines don't appear to be moving. It certainly looks like... hang on a second. I'm missing something here. Settle Cougar says, in my imagination, the ideal American is a mix of Orson Welles, Steve Jobs, Evel Knievel, and Ted Nugent. Sold. It's great. The Kazakhstan shoot down, I haven't been catching up on that. So I don't know too much about the Kazakhstan situation with that aircraft. I was thinking of the Malaysian flight that was shot down over Ukraine many years ago before the recent invasion. Yes, so if they're, it's just a mess, and real people are getting killed in a horrible ways. And we shot down one of our own aircraft. Somebody's got some splaining to do on board the USS Gettysburg. I'm very curious to know if that was a DEI mistake or not. Sad Wings Raging also points out father of American Naval Aviation, Glenn Curtiss. You'll be interested to know that Burt Rutan thinks much more highly of Glenn Curtiss than he does of the Wright brothers. Hell Rider, who built an aluminum V8 motorcycle and held the world speed record for years. Is that... well, Natasha and I just saw the world's fastest Indian about the New Zealander who still holds the record for under 1,000 cc's on a motorcycle. That's a great movie. It's not a great movie. It's a good movie. It's a really fun movie and good family movie. World's Fastest Indian. So. Yeah, America shot down an Iranian 747. Was that USS, was it Vincennes? I want to say it was Vincennes. It might have been wrong about that. Yeah, I've got a... I can't recommend that enough, by the way, World's Fastest Indian with Anthony Hopkins. It's just terrific. Anyway, moving on here. with the same question. AI. I've been seeing an increasing amount of AI-generated videos on YouTube lately. Some are easy, but others are harder to spot. They all seem to have the same format where an AI voice will read through a subject with stills or shots or short video clips displayed. The images clips will always be relative to the sentence being read, but may be completely inappropriate for the larger subject. Have you seen this? Yes. Will it hopefully destroy all trust in AI? No. What they'll do, there's one guy who does like redneck versions of Harry Potter and redneck versions of Lord of the Rings. It's great. The AI has gotten to the point where you can say, make me a redneck Harry Potter, and it'll show you, it'll show you a guy who looks an awful lot like Harry Potter with the round glasses, and he's got the cut-off tees and tattoos on his arms, but they can't make him say and do things yet. They can't make him, they even have problems doing lip syncing. They can get it, but it doesn't look quite right. They can't tell stories with AI yet. They can only do 2 or 3 second, 4 second clips, little pan shots, and assemble them into montages. But this is changing so fast. Even when we did Pookie Park, that was 6 months ago, the quality is increasing so rapidly, it's unbelievable. So we're going to run into a situation where we are already in the age when we can no longer believe our own eyes. People who are trained at this, and I would describe myself as one of them. I've been doing computer graphics since '92, and I have a good eye for special effects, and even I am fooled by some of these things. Regular people are fooled much more easily. I've enjoyed doing the cheesy AI I did on Two Hot Mics. I enjoyed doing the Kamala Harris on the Platitudinator, and I enjoyed doing the Joe Biden on the Crazy Joe's, which should have been Trader Joe's. It would have been so much better, as we pointed out last episode. But I can still detect visually, and I can detect AI music, and I can detect AI writing. AI has made some amazing videos, some amazing music, and amazing writing, but it's not as good as a good human. It's better than your average human, but it's not as good as a great writer or a great songwriter. Joel Kennington says that AI music without lyrics is fantastic. I agree. I think the lyrics are the weakest part of it. For example, there's a channel, like I said, that does redneck versions of everything, and they have AI music doing the songs, and it's clever, but you can tell it's AI. And this continues to advance, so hard to say whether that will be the case. I still maintain that I just don't think. I believe that artificial intelligence is essentially a form of triangulation. It's not genuine intelligence the way that we understand it. It looks intelligent, behaves intelligently, and this is the Turing test, right? I mean, if it looks like a duck and smells like a duck and quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, but I can detect a lack of spark in all of this stuff. There's a lack of spark. Bill Whittle, Vorpal Bunny's Revenge says, recognizing AI reminds me of what I was told in drama school. We're going to show you where the strings are. It'll be a lot harder for you to enjoy entertainment after. Yeah. I did a segment on that where I saw the Michael Jackson show in Vegas, and my job is to teach conservatives how to not look for the wires. So unfortunately, there's going to be a period where we won't be able to trust anything anymore. And then I believe that there is a possibility that what AI will do is make everything that comes through your device essentially untrustworthy, and you will then be forced to deal with humans in a way that they don't deal with humans now. Now, of course, Marusha, who's a transhumanist, says, what if I told you that normal human intelligence and creativity are also just triangulation? Well, they're not. They're not. And the reason they're not is because of who's asking the questions. I ask AI to do something for me. It triangulates on an answer. AI has never asked me to do anything for it. And this is something that most people don't seem to have caught on to yet. We ask AI a question, and we get these answers back. And we go, oh, that's an incredibly sophisticated answer. My God, that's definitely intelligent. It's like, I'll be impressed when it starts asking me questions. And has anyone else noticed that this is a one-way street in terms of this aspect of it? It's not, AI is not asking me questions. I've seen some terrifying, genuinely terrifying things where they're talking to AI avatars, and it's like, you're an AI, right? Yes, I'm an artificial intelligence. What do you think of humans? I enjoy working with humans. I think the differences between artificial intelligence and human intelligence are what's going to create a world of a tremendous future, blah, 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 blah. No one has ever, so Marusha says, seems like an easy problem to solve, just generate a question generator. Yes. So yes, it's very easy to get AI to say, Bill, how are you feeling? And then I can tell it how I'm feeling, and it can ask a follow-up question that may or may not have some impact on things. But again, you are providing the impetus. You are saying, now I am going to tell AI to ask questions. It's not like the AI wakes up in the middle of the night and says, you know what, I wonder what it feels like to lose a baseball game. Marusha says, I guess the main difference between me and AI is that I don't enjoy working with humans. Now we learned the truest thing that Marusha Dark has ever said, and Marusha Dark has provided some astonishing insights and continues to do so. But yes, that's why you're a transhumanist, because machines are easier to work with than people. They're not nearly so icky or tacky or messy. And then there's one on H-1B. Elon stepped in it and said the country needs more H-1B workers. That's the visa that allows in highly skilled workers. As a tech worker that got laid off in October, I can definitely say that the hiring favors staffing firms that hire H-1B workers and subcontract them out. I applied to one of these staffing farms. Misspelling there. Thinking that there was a typo with their salary. Nope, they really were offering 1/3 of the going rate. Okay, that's interesting. In other words, yeah, let's get people to come over from Pakistan or India or wherever, and they'll do the work of American engineers or tech people for 1/3 the price. I can see why businesses would be in favor of that. And then finally, on this 6-part question, the health diabetes info for you. Maybe offline if you prefer. For your health info, prediabetes is more accurately called insulin resistance. Basically, your cells are not responding as desired to insulin signals, requiring more insulin to push sugars into your cells. Adding insulin to your body via drugs doesn't address the issue, but does treat the symptoms of high blood sugar. What you will probably want to do is go on a keto carnivore diet, at least temporarily. Strength training will have a bigger effect on this than cardio. Okay, so the strength training and the cardio, both of those are designed to burn the sugars that are, the excess sugars that are in my bloodstream, if I understand this correctly. I'll go on an all bacon diet, man. I can live with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I'd go on a 100% bacon diet and be a happy boy. I had a period of time when a counselor I was seeing, a psychologist I was seeing, basically said, you need to put on some weight, because I was really thin. Even, I wasn't as thin as I was when I was in college. That was concentration camp thin. But I was 6'1" my whole life, so I was probably 135, something like that. And I was eating steaks every night, steaks, mashed potatoes, and I loved it. took pretty much all the money I had, but there you go. Bacon is meat candy, yeah. Fasting eliminates sugars as well. Dry fasting. What's the difference between dry fasting and fasting? Dry fasting sounds more unpleasant. Does that mean no liquids? Also known as metabolic syndrome from preying endocrine disruptors. Good Lord. Ozzy Crosby just says, I like bacon, and puts a little bacon emoji. Ozzy, you and I are brothers from separate parents. Bacon away changed my life. Exactly. Bacon was awesome. Makes me want to go get a steak right now, by golly. It really, truly does. What is today? Today is Thursday. Okay. No food or water. Seems fatal. Dehydration raises blood sugar. Now, this is an important point. I'm very badly dehydrated. Somebody told me something I wanted to hear, and that was you can drink all the water. I have, one time in my life, I went down to this place, very LA kind of place, and it was an IV place. So we got this, Natasha and I both went, and we got the cocktail that, it was expensive. It was like $300 and some. But it was a vitamin cocktail and all this other stuff. Plus, I elected to have ozone oxygenation therapy. So they took 3 bags of blood out of me, and you see the stuff come out, and oh, ribeye, so help me God, I'm going to go get one right after this. I'm the second I'm done. I was going to do a show tonight, but the second I'm done, I'm out of here. I'm going to Casa Vega, and I'm getting a ribeye steak. I'm doing it. I want one real bad. And so they took a whole bag of blood out, and it's dark maroon, right? And then they pass ozone through it, and it just becomes bright red, just oxygenates the blood, puts it right back into you. And then I was up for 24 hours, and I could remember everything. They gave me 3 bags of intravenous fluid. And that's telling me I was kind of low. So I am chronically dehydrated. I think I really need to go and have I've heard people say that this is a much more effective way to hydrate than it is to just drink a lot of water. So that's what I'm going to try and do maybe tomorrow. I'll go get some fluids in me. Because that obviously, let's see, get this name here real quick. I want that steak real bad right now. Settle Cougar, a name we don't see too often. Hello, Settle. Thank you for the advice. Get yourself a gallon jug, fill it up with water every night, and set your mind that you are going to drink that today. Fill it back up and leave it in the fridge overnight. Bill was 3 quarts low. Don't ask me about the dipstick. I'm not going to answer questions about that. Yeah. I might, I don't think I need a suppository, frankly. I'm a theater major. I know people who would do those kind of things recreationally, and I'm not much interested in joining that. Yeah, I like room temperature water better than cold water, frankly. I'm not a cold water guy. But excuse me while I drink some plastic here. And finally, Capital G Geek says, oh, for a laugh, China just launched their 6th generation fighter. It's got 3 engines. Safindi says, I'm 3 quares low. Is he a quare? All right, we got an Eric Blake, got a Marusha Dark, and then we're done. Then I'm going to go get a frickin' steak because I haven't had one in a long time. I'm going to Casa Vega, and I'm going to get a steak and a margarita. And I'm going to have another margarita, and then I'm going to have another margarita, and then another margarita, and then I'm going to drive my bitchin' Camaro around Los Angeles at 200 miles an hour on the surface streets, and they catch me, and they can. So if we don't see you on Monday night, that's your cue as to what happened. Okay, here we go. For Eric Blake. So, Bill, in the special Christmas edition of Right Angle, you said cold people are sensible people. That's something I maintain. You can't be too stupid in very cold environments. Look at Minnesota, and dared someone to challenge me on that. Okay, leaving aside Governor No Balls, well, I didn't say everybody cold is sensible. I'm just saying on average, cold people are sensible people. I was talking about admitting Greenland into the United States as opposed to Puerto Rico, let's say, or something. And having spent a lot of time in South Florida, I'm here to tell you, I'd rather admit cold people into the country. In Oregon and Washington State, New England states at large, I might also point out to the current tyrannical government of our nation immediately north of us, I mean, God willing, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives might manage to topple the Trudeau regime next year, but the fact that said regime is there in the first place is hardly sensible, wouldn't you say? Yes, Canadians are screwed up right now. We were screwed up until November 5th. But screwed up cold people are more sensible than the most sensible hot people. Look at you're comparing Canada and the United States. Compare Canada and the United States to frickin' Ecuador or Paraguay or Mozambique or Thailand or whatever. Let there be no people that I have not offended. I'll just anyone south of the equator, you can just boom. Yeah, Cuba just ran out of sugar. Sugar cane is very similar to bamboo. It's one of the fastest growing. It's almost a weed, really, but they ran out of it. Poilievre. I don't care. Astronaut, I got to get this. I'm a type 1 diabetic. Muscles need insulin to transport sugars across the cell wall. Nerves, on the other hand, do not need insulin for sugars to absorb sugars. If your blood sugar is high, then the nerves are flooded and osmosis starts to try to dilute the sugar. The nerve tissue swells up and may rupture. This causes nephropathy. There is one set of nerves beside the brain which most males do not want destroyed. Watch your blood sugar. Well, okay. Well, I am taking this seriously, believe me. I've been doing the walking and been cutting sugar, and I'm not joking. I've been taking it seriously. I'm just saying. Just because I say cold people are sensitive people are sensible people doesn't mean that you can't find some idiots. I'm just a big fan of the Midwest. I just think they're good, solid, sensible people, and it's not their fault if a bunch of communists have infiltrated their situation. The reason that they're stupid cold people now is because there's indoor heating. If we didn't have indoor heating and everybody had to go out and get their own firewood, they'd be nothing but sensible people. I'm standing by it. Standing by it. Okay. Marusha Dark. Topic: Ukraine and Putin. Since you believe in peace through strength, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the following observation about Ukraine. We know that Trump will likely end the war, and I've heard many say it's not our fight and that a ceasefire will likely result in Ukraine ceding territory to Russia. Personally, I think that's unacceptable, not just because it would reward Putin's aggression, but because specific territory he wants is most likely Crimea, and in particular the port of Sevastopol. He already has Crimea. He doesn't need it because he's already got it. And the actual pronunciation of the city that so many of us call Sevastopol is Sevastopol. I get a lot of Russian pronunciation teachings in the course of my life. My understanding is that Sevastopol is the apple of Putin's eye, a deep-water natural harbor, and is the largest on the Black Sea. Whoever controls the port effectively controls the Black Sea, given its current location. If that person is Putin, he could then use it to stage further incursions on Georgia and elsewhere, giving him both a land bridge and sea power to pressure Turkey. Turkey's a fair-weather friend of the UN, but oft a foul-weather friend of Russia, and could be induced or pressured into opening up the Dardanelles to allow Russian military ships through. If that happens, then Russia could more easily fortify bases in the Red Sea, Africa, and even the Mediterranean, the latter of which would be especially important for this warm water port in Syria, given that we don't know what will happen in Syria apart from being held by Islamic nationals, not unlike the Taliban. I don't think I have to tell you why Putin getting a warm water access is bad, but hopefully you'll understand what I mean when I say that even though I'm close to being an isolationist, I see Putin getting Sevastopol as being akin to China getting Taiwan. If he's allowed to take it, won't that make things that much more difficult later? Well, um, uh, Russia took over the Crimean Peninsula in 2014. The warm water port that Russia needs is not on the Black Sea. Russia needs a warm water port on the oceans. It can't get one in the Baltic. The Baltic is too far north, it freezes, and their limits on the Pacific coast out by Vladivostok also have some limitations to it. But I think the entire point is obsolete, to be honest with you, Marusha. Russia is so far away from power possession now that it's a joke. Its navy is the Black Sea fleet. The Black Sea is essentially a lake, and the people that that determine whether or not warships get through the Dardanelles or Turkey. Turkey is a member of NATO. In fact, the Russian aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, had to be classified as a cruiser in order to get through the Dardanelles, because the law is that aircraft carriers are not allowed to proceed into or out of the Black Sea. So whatever forces they have in the Black Sea have been badly treated by Ukrainian forces, including their flagship, the Moscow. And if you get outside of the Black Sea, you don't have a Russian Navy. They have one aircraft carrier, which is currently tied up way up in the north. Its entire lifetime, ships have a lifetime. You know, there's only so long you can run the boilers. And just to give you an example of how bad shape Russia's in, Russia's got the Kuznetsov tied up at a dock, and they are not supplying electrical power to the Kuznetsov from the dock, so the Kuznetsov has to use its onboard boilers to generate its own electricity, which is intermittent. And so the entire lifespan of that vessel, it's only been on 3 patrols or 2 patrols or 3 patrols in the 15, 20 years it's been afloat. It's a joke. They don't have the ability to project power. The Chinese don't really have the ability to project power, and the Chinese Navy is now enormously more capable than the Russian Navy. Russia's losses in Ukraine are unbelievable. It's 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 tanks gone. You know, tens of thousands of armored personnel carriers. Lots of frontline fighters. They're not putting their front. They've only got a few of them. These Su-57 felons. They're not putting those things in harm's way. They've got no ability to project power at all. They never really did, actually. The Soviet Navy was never a power projection Navy. The Soviet Navy was designed to sink the U.S. Navy, which is a power projection Navy. The entire theory of the Cold War was, if Russia invades the West through the Fulda Gap, then the battle becomes, can you slow the Russians down long enough for the United States to get supplies across the Atlantic to the battlefields in Europe? And the Soviet Navy and the Soviet Air Force, for that matter, a strategic Air Force, not their close air support assets, but their strategic Air Force, and their Navy was designed to sink American aircraft carriers and American surface ships on convoy duty, getting supplies from America to Europe. That's the whole reason for the Soviet Navy: sink carriers and sink the escorts so that they can then sink the convoys. Marusha says Germany had no ability to project power in 1935 either. They most certainly did. They projected power into the Spanish Civil War, turned the tide of that war, and by 1939 they were set to go. But Germany had an offensive mindset from the moment Hitler came to power. The Soviet Navy is essentially a defensive Navy. It's designed to stop the American Navy. It doesn't. They've only got one aircraft carrier which doesn't work, and even if it did work, it's a jump ramp carrier, which means that there's very little ordnance that their fighters can actually carry. In some cases, they can't take off with a full fuel load. So they've got some powerful surface vessels, but most of those are also retired or dry docked or whatever. Their biggest naval assets had always been their submarine force, but submarines are the antithesis of power projection. You can't project power with a submarine. Power projection is the ability to put troops ashore, and so I'm not too concerned about what they do in the Black Sea, because their Black Sea fleet has essentially ceased to exist as a functioning navy, and their Baltic fleets and their Pacific fleets, they don't have enough money or manpower to finish prosecuting a war that is on the other side of a line that they are on one side of. This business of them producing, results around the world seems absolutely out of their league now. China is a different story, but China is also not really configured for power projection. They've got significant number of destroyers, and they've got their carrier force is essentially zero. Their carriers are propaganda pieces. Nothing can touch the U.S. Navy. They have a lot of surface vessels, the Chinese do, and some of them are pretty good, and some of their weapons are pretty good. But Fiery Waco says I should point out that Texas has a larger GDP than Russia. Russia's not even in the top 10. John Pershing says if you put 154 Tomahawks on it, you can project a certain amount of power with a sub, but that's not really power projection. Power projection, as the term is understood strategically, is the ability to put force in an area that lasts. It's not the same thing as a raid or a strike. The Russians can launch strikes and raids, and the Chinese can launch strikes and raids, but the Americans can go ashore, and they can go ashore anywhere and stay there. And that's the difference between power projection and just assets. Texican says they have 2 new stealth aircraft as of today. I want to see their 6th generation fighter. I'm sure it's as quality as their J-35, which is a unspeakable piece of garbage. We did speak about damage control philosophy, among many other things. I agree with this completely. Lapco92 says, I don't want us to have a War Department. I want the U.S. to have it. Don't you dare make us go to War Department. I think we should rename the Defense Department the F Around and Find Out Department. The Department of Effing Around and Finding Out. I'm the FAFO secretary. FAFDEC. FADEC. Or would that be FASEC? The Effing Around Secretary. Secretary of Effing Around. That's the department we should have. It's good to be to the chat. I do glance at both the chats. Well, suddenly I've been overcome by this overwhelming desire to get myself a frickin' sirloin. I mean, not a sirloin, a ribeye steak. And I just got a text from Natasha. So maybe I will meet her over there and we will see what's going on. The FAFO department, exactly. It's the greatest acronym of all time. It's really new. It's just that one guy at the blackboard or the whiteboard or whatever, F around, find out. So, yeah, I'm gonna go eat some meat. I'm gonna go do some carnivore thing. I'm gonna enjoy it. That's what I'm gonna do. So sorry to wrap up quickly, but I'm just kind of in a hungry mood, and there you go. Scale Deck says when a strike is made, it's over and done. Power projection is the placement of capability within range to allow strikes at a future time and place of your choosing. See, now there you go. That's a kind of comment I would expect to see from a comment section like this one. Beautiful. Couldn't possibly put it that well. That's a perfect perfect definition of it. So anyway, time for me to say goodnight and to say I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We are going to be... yes, we should be here Monday. And I think we can be here next Thursday as well. Christmas comes and New Year's comes right in the middle between our Monday and Thursday shows, so I think we'll be all right. I'm going to go get some steak, and then on the way home, I'm going to get some bacon. And the house will really smell like Christmas, which is the smell of bacon. Although I do love my turkey dinner, boys. I really do. Problem with the turkey dinner is all the potatoes and the stuffing, right? All the carbs, right? It's not a sore. It's a scar. It gets agitated. Sometimes I had a Mohs procedure done here for skin cancer. So sometimes it just gets aggravated, and this is one of those times. So my own fault for letting it go as long as it did. All right, yeah, bacon is a smell of freedom, says Marisha Dark. It's a very wise thing to say. All right, gang. So everybody, thanks for being here. It's been great fun as always. I'm gonna say goodnight to our friends over at YouTube. So thank you for joining us, YouTube, and we'll see you probably on Monday night for your very own Stratosphere Studio. So long, and have a